All right, BobalosRex here, and this is kind of like a spur of the moment little mini lore rant. It should be mini. Before my more encompassing, spoiler filled lore rant tomorrow. But today I'm going to do a spoiler free. I'm not saying any spoilers. I'm not gonna say spoilers. I'm trying hard not to imply spoilers. I'm going to talk about 12.1 and my story experience spoiler free in this video, which means it's probably going to be short because the main stuff to be talked about and discussed is spoilers. But let's get into it. So if you want a spoiler free, like, how am I feeling after playing the whole story? Because I need to give y'all context. That PTR here, let's see if I can pull it up here. Because I'm in the normal game. So nothing here, in my opinion, should count as spoilers. So let's see. Okay. So look, right here, you can see the Curse of Ula'tek. We know the patch name. All right, and you can even see these. There is one extra here on the PTR, which they mention in the post. I'm not going to mention what these are, and I'm going to not give away any spoilers, but as you can see, I'm just going to use this to discuss how the story progresses. So, this first part, Legacy of the Amani, this is what we're going to play in this patch on July 7th. Okay? I had to play it again on the PTR. Alright, so I got it refreshed. You know, again, I actually really like this questline. I like what we do for this questline. So July 7th, we're in for a treat. Okay? And it has some big stuff go on in it. Alright? And then it sets up. Alright, then when the patch hits, there's a whole little setup, some stuff's going on, some people show up, and then we head over to the isle itself. And the isle itself, cool. I was engaged with how we got there. It feels immediate, like stuff's going on. You're like, okay, this is a thing. We got the group of characters we're gonna go over with. They're all acting in character, the people we got there. They do kind of discuss it, but I'm gonna keep character mentions light. But the characters we got are going over. You know, some characters even discuss some things that would be in character and get replies from other characters that are also in character, and things progress. All right, and for me, everyone's acting in character. Even though some things are upsetting, like, I am engaged in this story, right? I am getting upset when certain characters make certain decisions, so I am getting invested as this thing is progressing. Then we start figuring out a mystery. There's a mystery going on. Then we gotta do some stuff, and then we gotta help some people, and then that's where we do the dungeon. Okay? After some stuff goes on, we end up doing the dungeon here. Alright? And then, no. In Ghosts of the Past, that's when we're figuring out the mystery. We're doing the mystery. And again, as we're doing this stuff, right? We have to do one thing. Some stuff goes on. Some stuff happens to some characters. Invested. Then that leads us into solving the mystery. Why are we here? What happened with the Amani? How did the Amani Empire begin with? Like, some stuff we know. We know it was Kithix versus Amani. Then we learn about the big thing. The big thing. I'll say Ula'tek. And we learn how all that comes together to lead us into this quest right here. Alright, and we figure out all that stuff. Some more major stuff happens between characters, and then it leads into the raid. At every point, the characters are believable to me, and I'm invested. I'm so invested in these characters, all right? And I can't deny it, right? And there is going to be some, like, the issues. I've talked about issues before that I have with the story, right? And this is what it's going to be about. All of those issues are not playing this story. This is fun. This is engaging. We're going into places, learning things, learning mysteries. You know, some things feel obvious. Others are like, oh, that's why kind of stuff, right? And get you thinking, right? And then some lead to some other questions, minor questions. And then that leads us into the raid, right? We don't get to test the dungeon. They gave us the dungeon skip. We can't test the dungeon. So the only context I get is why we go into the dungeon and what happens after at the end of the dungeon because of like the consequences I see. So it's like, okay, we kind of get a gist of what's going on. Then when we go into the raid, it skips us again. So we don't get to see anything. No raid cinematics. We could read about the raid fights and dungeon fights, but we can't see that context. So I want to let y'all know we do miss, the people who do this on the PTR and gonna talk about it do miss some stuff that could have big implications, right? That I can't really talk about in the spoiler free. And then we get the conclusion of the raid. So we don't get to see the raid, but we get what happens after, because they let us skip that and get the basically the turn-in and conclusion. And then that led into this extra quest, which is the Erator one they mentioned in the reveal, right? And that one, Erator's thing, directly leads into 12.1.5. That's all I'm going to say. That directly leads. When you do that quest line, you're going to be like, I know where we're going in 12.1.5. All right. Well, I know what's happening in 12.1.5. All right. When you play that. But now, my overall feelings of the story. Like I said, it kept me engaged. It was 4 hours from beginning to end having to do that about. And I didn't do the dungeon, so that would add some time. And I didn't do the raid, so that will add some time. And good boss fights. You know, the dungeon, we're going to see how that is. But I love raiding in WoW, so I know boss fights wise, I'm going to be invested. And again, the stuff that goes on in there is really going to matter. So I do want that context before I like fully judge this story. But let's get to my conclusion here. So my issues with it. Parts of it are almost too predictable, right? Like I said, others have us asking questions, but some I'm left asking questions and they're not good questions, right? And that's where part of me here. And then I'll get into the spoilers tomorrow. But with this, part of me feels like, why did they let us do so much? Why can I do so much? Why can I see so much and some parts of it be that predictable in a way? It really did leave me questioning, right? And like I said, all the characters, though, were doing stuff in character. It all flowed. And I was invested, right? I was literally jumping like, oh my God, they gave me the raid finish. Oh my God, right? That's how invested in the story I am. And some of my issues with it, I do worry about, right? Because I am a little disappointed. Overall, my impression is I'm a little disappointed. But it all stems from the conclusion that I feel like I'm missing stuff. And some of it is, did I overhype myself? Because y'all know I've been hyping up the troll patch, right? Talking about all these characters being involved. And, you know, of course, when you ask for all these characters to be involved, you do kind of get yourself set up for disappointment because they can't bring everybody, right? They can't bring everybody. So part of me worries that I may have set myself up for the troll patch. But overall, I do think this is a good continuation of the Amani storyline from the base game. Right? It follows, it lines up, but it doesn't achieve the same heights, right? Because to me, Zulamon was a 10 out of 10 zone, right? Then we move over into a Ula'tek, and or the Coiled Isle, and it's more of like a 7 out of 10, right? To me, it's not bad. But it feels like a drop because of what we just were doing with the Amani, right? But it does connect all the pieces. It does fill in all the holes for the most part, even though I do say it leaves some questions. And it does tie up the Zulamon story from Burning Crusade. It does tie that up, and I do like that. So, like I said, overall it's a 7 out of 10. But from going from Zulamon, that's a dip. That's a dip, right? But I'm not going to say it's bad. In no way can I say it's bad, because I was loving every minute of it. Till, if you just see this part right here, I cut some part because I don't want to let y'all in on nothing. Just know that I played through it and I was engaged. And then by the end, I was left disappointed. That's it. But again, I am missing some huge context. I am missing some context that may change how I feel, especially after doing the raid and stuff. All right. So I'll have to see. Either way, I'll see you next time. And then I'll really get into detail and spoilers in tomorrow's video. Okay. But this one should be spoiler free. All right, y'all. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.